Hi, Doctor. So my name is Sarah, and today I'll be presenting on my thesis title, which is Translating Scientific Terms from English to Chinese. And so a little bit background on why I did this project is that I noticed that English speakers are slowly increasing, and this also applies to Chinese speakers. And Chinese speakers are also the second most spoken language in the whole world. And Chinese, very much like English, is used in a varieties of different fields, such as in medical field, science field, astronomy, business, marketing, cryptocurrencies, and it is just basically quite large. And so I have chosen 30 scientific terms in order to analyze it and to analyze the issues and find out the translation procedures. And so these sources of the scientific terms did come from a varieties of different places like bilingual dictionaries, newspaper, websites, or even packaging wrappers. So next, for the next slide, I will be talking about my research questions and my research objective. So for the first research question is that, what are the issues in translating English scientific terms into Chinese? And so my research objective to this is to determine the issues in translating English scientific terms into Chinese. And for the second research question is, what are the translation procedures used to translate English scientific terms into Chinese? And so the objectives will be followed by to find out the translation procedures used to translate English scientific terms into Chinese. And for the next slide's methodology, I'll be using a quasi-experimental research design with a measurable structure with 30 terms. So I will put everything into a table in order to make me easier in order to analyze the terms. And for the translation procedure, I will be mainly focusing on Newmark's translation procedure from 1988. Okay, so for the first word, the word Newton. And the translator in this case used the translation procedures of naturalization or recognized translation. And if you look word for word in the meaning, new means count and tun means to stop. And this word for word meaning actually doesn't make any sense, but then if you read it carefully, you can see that Newton, and you can somehow hear that it is similar to the sounding of the word Newton. And so this is what we call naturalization. And in this case, I choose this word is because that it would definitely be difficult for the translator to translate this word if the translator doesn't have enough knowledge in this field and doesn't have enough knowledge in the physics. And by just adding one word into this Newton, it will change the whole meaning, such like the word soup. So Newton Tang, it will change the whole meaning into beef braised soup. And this completely made no sense and doesn't relate to Newton. So the translator would have to have sufficient knowledge in order to translate these scientific fields. And so for the next one is the word energy. And the translator in this case perhaps uses machine translation to translate because it shows an odd translation, which is 热量. And again, if you look at the word format meaning, it doesn't make any sense, and because it is hot quantity, which doesn't mean anything. And however, for Chinese, this is always the case. And so when you put it together, 热量 actually means calorific value. And as you can see the back translation here, the word calorific value doesn't have the same meaning as energy. It's two completely different things. Calorific value is calorific value and energy is energy. And so in this case, the translator should have translated to 热量, which is the recognized translation of energy and not calorific value. And moving on to the last example, maintain social distance. For this particular word, it is rather hard to translate due to this word appear only just frequently. And many of these words appear in those notices in maybe shopping mall, in the brochures, that give out to anyone, poster even, and such. This is why it is important to translate this word correctly in order for the community to understand. And in this case, the author translate it to 社会保持距离. And I would suspect this is a machine translation as well, because the semantics of these words doesn't make any sense. And if you translate it into English again, it becomes society to maintain distance. And even for the Chinese syntax, it is a bit weird, and it shouldn't be written this way. Instead, it should be translated to 保持社交距离, which is the most accurate translation here, which is maintain social distancing, or we can add also contact or interaction distancing. And or you can also translate it to 距离远点, or also known as keep your distance a little bit further from me, or something like that. And the other one is 保持距离, keep your distance. So as you can see, there's 3 suggested translation here, and this suggested translation is aimed for the target audience. And so this is also what I find out, is that the translator would need to ensure that the target audience understand what you're writing about. If the translator translate it to Malaysian Chinese population, and yes, maybe they would be able to understand. But on the other hand, if you translate for Taiwanese Chinese or even China Chinese, they on the other hand might not understand this word. And so the issues on translating the scientific terms is also that it is important to know who your target audience is and who you are actually translating for. If you are translating for Chinese in China, then you should use the word they are used to it. And if you're translating for Chinese in Malaysia or maybe Singapore, then you should use the word that we are used to it, instead of using the word from Chinese in China, because it would make the target audience confused when they read your translation. And so this is my presentation, and thank you for listening.